Good afternoon, Team Edwards. I'm joining you alone but unafraid from the center of the aerospace testing universe. Today is 15 July. It's Friday, so happy Friday to everybody. And today we have quite a show. We're going to have a representative from mental health, Captain Brown will be joining us, as well as Jared Thomas from the TEDx event that we had here in the recent past. But before we get into that, I'd like to talk to you about kind of what we had going on this week. We were fortunate enough to have our AFMC leadership, General Richardson and Chief Flossie, join us for a tour of Team Edwards, if you will. And so we had a pretty good visit. We were able to take General Richardson around to see some of the various elements of our mission, as well as meet the folks that are behind the scenes making that happen. So that went well, and so thanks for everybody that was involved in the success of that, and a special shout out to our protocol office, as they also were heavily involved, and they always do a phenomenal job there. We were fortunate enough to get out to the West Gate. General Richardson was able to check out some folks on the night shift during the shift change, so got a chance to actually chat with some of our airmen face to face, and so that was successful and awesome. In addition to that, Chief Flossie, the AFMC command chief, was able to have a session with our airmen down at Plant 42, and so all in all, I think the event, or the visit rather, went very smoothly, and I was excited to have our newest leadership to come out and see what we're about here. Additionally, we were able to recognize 4 of our folks. We had some individuals that got coined by General Richardson. So we had outstanding performers, Tech Sergeant Tolbert from the Med Group. We had Tech Sergeant Wandre from the Mission Support Group, Sergeant Manuel, Staff Sergeant Manuel from the Test Wing, and Major Hart from the Operations Group. And so just all in all, a great event, and we did well, so thank you again. I guess we will go ahead and get started with our first guest, and that's going to be Captain Brown from Mental Health. She's going to talk to us about some of the resources that you all have at your fingertips, and just kind of the ins and outs of what mental health is. So Captain Brown, ma'am.
Hi.
It's over to you.
Thank you. So I'm Captain Brown. I'm one of the psychologists at the Mental Health Clinic. I'm also the Mental Health Element Lead. And so mental health is the building that's, well, we've moved. And so the Med Group, right before you get into the main part of that, we're in those little portables to the right of you. In that facility, we offer, of course, mental health services, so individual therapy, group therapy, crisis interventions, any kind of consultations that you may have. If you have questions about maybe a member that may be struggling, you can call us and we can kind of help you in that position as far as like crisis resources and those of that nature. Our facility does only see active duty members, and so that's one of the things that we are trying to get a little bit better at, but at this time we're just only seeing active duty members. So active duty members are free to come in and have those kind of conversations, individual, group, those kind of things. We also offer FAP services, which is our family advocacy program. Now that service does offer couples counseling. New parent program is now available. So anybody who has a child that's 3 and under, our nurse, Melanie, is amazing, who can come out and talk to new parents, whether it's their first child or their 5th child, about services, about feeding, about latching, disciplinary kind of strategies, all those kind of things. And then we also offer ADAP services. So if you're familiar with ADAP, it's our alcohol and substance abuse program. So we have patients or members who come in and they self-refer. That's our best thing that we want people to do, right? If they're feeling like they may be struggling with some type of substance use or alcohol use, we want you to definitely self-refer and get some information about what you can do to kind of help yourself kind of get on a better track for you. And so we do offer that as well. Outside of the mental health clinic, there's also your chaplains that are available. MFLAC is also available to people. So there's lots of community resources with on base that you can get some additional mental health needs if you need to. And then off base, of course, we always point people to AVH if they need something. But there is also great county programs. Kern County has a what's called a mobile crisis unit that will come out to people's homes and do a mental health assessment on them and kind of determine what's needed if they need to, either be hospitalized or go to like their crisis unit and get some stabilization. So there's a couple of really good services for people out there who are not in the military. I do want to just kind of remind people about the Veterans Hotline. It says veterans, but active duty, anybody can call. That's the 1-800-580-9078. And then our number, if you have any questions, is 661-277-5291.
Awesome. So, ma'am, I have a quick question. So, with regards to mental health, and obviously COVID had a huge impact on us. Probably beyond 2020, we had things going on, but especially in 2020, things kind of took the COVID pandemic, now endemic, took a toll on everyone's mental health in some shape, form, or fashion. Would you say that from 2020 to now, like heading into the latter part of 2022, that we have seen some of the influx of patients, I guess, go down in any way, or would you say that we've increased, or what would you offer in terms of the status of what you see in the mental health office or some of the resources and programs that you offer there?
Sure. So it waxes and wanes, definitely. And so, of course, at the peak of COVID, we did see a lot of members coming in really struggling with the isolation, with feeling, the burdens of COVID, the being scared of COVID early on. We didn't have vaccinations and that kind of stuff. And so people were really genuinely worried about, what's going to happen to their family and those kind of things. As time progressed, we're seeing just more of people worried about getting back out there, dealing with kind of inflation issues and other kind of things that are happening. We have a lot of young members that are on this base. So I tell people that recognize that you have a lot of 18 and 24-year-olds. So if you remember yourself when you were 18 and 24, that's a lot of stress to be. This is a lot of times their first duty base, and then you tack on COVID and all these other things. And so they're out here just kind of trying to figure it out. And so the best thing that we can offer as a base is just really being a good wing person when people are struggling with these kind of things. As far as like suicidal ideations or suicide thoughts or those kind of things, again, it just kind of just depends on kind of what is going on. I wouldn't say COVID is the rationale or the reason behind we're seeing the influx in suicide ideations and those kind of things. I will say that maybe the isolation and maybe people struggling with kind of getting reintegrated into what that looks like is this new normal, and mask and not mask, and can I see my family, can I not see my family, those kind of things. So all that kind of anxiety provoking things can definitely trigger some just feelings of like hopelessness and things of that nature. So if you do have a member or you have family members or whoever who are struggling with those things, of course we're available, but also ask the tough questions. So lots of times we get people who are just kind of afraid to ask about people having suicide ideations. In fact, just ask them, just say like, hey, do you feel like you want to hurt yourself? Have you ever hurt yourself before? Have you had these thoughts before? Have you ever attempted before? And have these conversations with people so that then you can get them to the help that they deserve, whether that's coming to see us or if that's going to the hospital, but having those kind of conversations with people.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned having a wingman, and I know throughout the broadcast here, at least in the last 6 months, we've kind of mentioned connectedness and making sure that we are checking on each other and reaching out and making sure people are good to go. I think that's vitally important, and I like that you bring up the wingman concept. I know that over time that has kind of lost its steam, but I'm hopeful that we are keeping that alive and that people are no kidding using that as a resource as well. I feel like over time our connectedness has waned, if you will. I don't know what that's due to, but I do know that we have to make a conscious effort to develop those relationships and to make sure that people feel comfortable and that they trust us, trust each other to share things that they might be going through, whether that's financial issues, relationship issues, or just something that's going on at work. It could be anything. And so I want to keep harping on that. I don't think we can say enough that we are supposed to be an Air Force family. And so as a family, we desperately need everyone to have that feeling, and so that they will know that they have someone on their left and on their right. And so peers, supervisors, leadership, it doesn't matter, friends, someone outside of the military, whatever your resource is, please make sure that you have something and someone, some way of coping, some way of communicating what's going on, because it really does help to get whatever is inside out and to vent, if you will, or to talk to someone about your different options, your different resources. And so thank you for sharing that. I hope that here in the near future, if COVID allows, COVID permitting, posture permitting, I should say, with the HP cons, that we can get our enlisted folks on an enlisted call. And I definitely open that up to civilians as well as officers, anybody that wants to attend. But to kind of get after what I'm saying, I'm very much a people person, and I'm all about getting out and about and seeing folks. And so I offer those invitations to all of my chiefs and first sergeants to make sure that there's an area, if there's an area or if there are people within their organizations, to have me over so that I can get to know people. And so by having an enlisted call, I think that that'll get airmen, if I do a tiered approach, airmen in the same room so that they can meet folks that they maybe haven't met across the wing, and then allow us to talk about the big rock items, housing, childcare, what you name it, and BAH, increases, or assignment incentive pay keeps coming up, but just things like that, and how we're able to address those, what we've been doing, what the updates are. And so my goal is to get everybody together at the end of the month. I'm aiming for like the 27th or 28th of July to just have 2 sessions with airmen in one and NCOs and above in the other, so that we can just kind of talk through some things. When Chief Flossie was down at Plant 42, one of the topics that came up was the enlisted grade review. And so I really would like to get in a room, in a forum with our NCOs, with our airmen, and anybody else that would like to join. Supervisors are highly recommended, advised, to come out and join us, to just kind of talk through what that means, how we started, and then what's happened in between to where we are now. And so things like that, things that are impacting promotion rates and stuff like that, those are the kinds of things that I know are on folks' mind. And so I would like to be able to dedicate a session to those types of things, and not necessarily go into that on the town hall where we're limited on time. So that is my goal. So be on the lookout. We hope to know in the next week or so what HPCon posture we will be in for the next couple of months based on what's going on in the community. I've seen some things on the news headlines indicating that LA County or whatever other counties in the local area are contemplating or debating mandatory mask wear, and I don't know when or if that's going to happen. And so, as that happens in and around us, we have to have discussions to see if that will indeed bleed over to the base. And so, if that does happen, we will, instead of having an in-person session, we will have to go with the virtual route, which I don't like to do, but we still need to have the conversations. We still need to have those discussions. And so it will be virtual rather than not be at all. And so, ma'am, did you have any final thoughts or information about connecting wingmen, mental health in general, or anything that you'd like to share with the audience?
Yeah, just again, just really want to stress the concept of the wingmanship and connecting with people, getting off of social media and actually having some face-to-face interactions with people. I have a member that's in our clinic that is like all about the volleyball. He was so excited that volleyball came back for a community-based thing. So every Wednesday he cuts out to play volleyball with the rest of the med group. And so having that connectedness, bringing those kind of community initiatives in place, if people have, or leaderships or your youngest airman has ideas about community initiatives and things to kind of bring connectedness, listen to them, help promote that, foster that, so that we can have some more things that these young airmen can say, like, hey, I can go to this person and they can offer me the support. And so when someone is struggling with that's really when they're really struggling with something really bad, they've had that relationship with you already. You've already established this type of rapport, and they're more prone to kind of talk to you and say, like, hey, these things are happening with me. And so again, I can't stress the community initiatives enough, the support enough. Mental health is only one little section, right? A wingman concept is everyone. And so mental health is a community support. And so we need everyone to rally behind our men and women when they are going through good things and bad things, and be able to provide that support for them.
Yes, ma'am. You mentioned initiatives. We recently had our SOAR teams put together an event called Light Up the Night, and it was basically a run, walk event where you could bring your children, your family, you could ride bikes, however you wanted to do it. And I thought that we had a pretty good turnout. That was one way that I felt like we were moving in the right direction with trying to keep that connectedness going and keep that sense of community. And so as we progress through the rest of the year and as things heat up a little bit more, we have to be creative. And so I think having something at night was appropriate. And so we'll have to do more things like that and figure out ways, get creative, and see what airmen and their families are interested in so that we can make sure that we roll out with those. And so, yeah. Ma'am, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Were there any, let me ask the PA folks behind the scenes if there were any flyers or information that was provided for your particular topic. Did you have a phone number or a website or anything that you would recommend that people save and use as a resource?
So don't have any flyers, but definitely the number to our clinic, the 661-277-5291, will be the best way to get a hold of us. And we're doing some really exciting things at the mental health clinic. We're rolling out groups and coping skills groups and stress management, communication groups, those kind of things. So definitely having that number so you can call us and let us know, or find out the dates of those groups would be something I want you to plug into your phones and have.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, with that, I guess we will roll right on into our Warrior of the Week segment. So today, we're fortunate enough to have Mr. Jared Thomas joining us. He's a member of our comm squadron, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about one of the events that he hosted here in the recent past. And so, if you don't mind, Mr. Thomas, could you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and then maybe give us some nuggets about how TEDx went?
Yeah, nice to meet everybody if I didn't get a chance to meet you during the TED event in April. But my name is Jared Thomas. I'm a project manager over at Comm Squadron, so represent Comm Squadron. That is my day job, and early on when I started working on base a couple years ago, I managed to have the fortunate opportunity to meet Wendy Peterson in this meeting of mental health and encouragement and things like that. She had a message of identifying your tribe, and for me, somebody that really loves innovation and talking about community collaboration and trying to find ways of getting to like these really tough strategic kind of places. I was drawn immediately to the innovation group and the test wing and the Spark Ed group in particular with Brittany Reed and Rebecca and everybody over there. So shout out to them. So over a couple months, I was just kind of a fly on the wall, and just trying to get up to speed with what initiatives were going on that represents innovation and the startup community and that whole entire ecosystem. And at one point, they announced that they wanted to host a TEDx event. And somebody like me, who has a very heavy background in academia, I have 2 master's degrees, one in English, in creative writing, and then the other one is in public administration, one from CSUN, the other from USC. And so, I when I found out about the TED event, I volunteered, and it was strictly a volunteer opportunity. So I put in for the license, and the rest is history. Just started working towards this idea with Chief Ward, yourself. You're a part of the initial brainstorming session, and as you know, it went from a germ of an idea to something that actually, the max attendance that we had, both online and in person, was about 1,800 people. So it was a tremendous event, and I think that there was it wasn't so much that was our goal. It was more along the lines of, like, I think there is a thirst or an appetite for these kinds of things here on base. So I'm more than happy to talk about it.
Oh, I want you to talk about it. So going with the theme, cyber, space, and artificial intelligence, yes. I think that in itself sparks interest nowadays for airmen at the lowest levels, whereas in my day, when I was at that particular rank, I don't think I was paying much attention to, the warfighting domains, if you will. That was something with air, land, and sea that the strategic thinkers and leaders in the military were concerned with, and it wasn't a concern of mine. I tell the airmen at First Term Airmen, the First Term Airmen Center, that nowadays with these new domains of space and cyber, you're actually fighting within that when you have your smartphone in your hand, if you will. And so making sure that you're mindful of the protections, the vulnerabilities to get around some of the things that the bad actors are trying to do. And so cyberspace and AI, I think having that as the theme, and then trying to tie that to the Airmen of 2030 as we talk about General Brown's initiatives, Accelerate, Change, or Lose, and the four components of that, that was spot on. And so if you don't mind, would you elaborate? I mean, we had, 22 speakers, and just various backgrounds there, and yeah, I'll let you have that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's a lot to talk about here. And so the story goes is that, I accepted the role of being the TEDx organizer, and I put in my application to TED headquarters and TED Talks, and they accepted that, this is the theme that we're going with. And as you were gracious enough to kind of give me insight into, top brass and what their initiatives are, especially with, pursuing inspiring the Airmen of 2030, I definitely wanted to plug in subcategories into that, because for me, it's being able to be specific about the message or the theme that we're trying to convey. And not only specific to the military, but what is the current trends and ecosystems that are going along throughout the entire world, right? So everybody talks about AI, everyone talks about cyber, and everyone talks about space, but what exactly does Edwards do in these ecosystems? And I think that type of vision and that type of focus is kind of lost on a lot of people. I mean, you simply don't know what you don't know. And if people don't talk about it, then how are you supposed to find out? And so I took the initiative of working with a lot of people to kind of craft this theme of inspiring the Airmen of 2030 in cyberspace and AI. And over the course of a fun story is that we had planning committees once a month, and you were part of the first handful of planning committee meetings, and we brainstormed this stuff for a couple months, and then we finally nailed down the theme, and then in November and December, because we had it at the end of the month, I canceled the meetings because we had holiday. I'm not going to have people come to the planning committee during holiday, but what people didn't know is that I was cold calling everybody at that point. I'd say I called about 4, maybe even 6 dozen different professionals, like senior type professionals, like president of Virgin Galactic, scientists at JPL, NASA people, Air Force people that are specializing in cyber warfare in New York. And I just word of mouth was navigating as best I could, and come January, when we had our planning committee meeting after 2 months of hiatus, I showed everybody the list of speakers that I had. I had about 12 speakers, and that's when things really started taking off, and everyone started really getting excited because it started becoming real and tangible, and it showed that all these speakers would love to come together to represent Edwards, to speak about what Edwards means to them, where it stands in the ecosystem, and I think it really spoke to this message of Takatu. And a lot of people, including myself, I didn't even know that acronym until I started taking on this role. So again, it's just a moment in time when you actually learn these things is when you can actually kind of gauge your vision on what we do here. And so that instills a lot of pride and a lot of big things. So.
Okay, cool. So, I mean, thank you for that. Thank you for the clarification. I knew, being behind the scenes and kind of working with you in the beginning, all the different speakers and organizations that you were coordinating with. I mean, when you add in the school districts and all the various organizations tied to the schools, I mean, that was just a tremendous effort. So I was excited about it from day one when I knew that this was happening. And you were so natural in how you initiated all of it and kicked it off. And I was just inspired by your background and your experience. And so, I knew it was going to be a flawless event, and I knew how successful it was going to be.
Thank you.
So good on you.
Yeah. To speak on expanding that stakeholder sort of thing. I personally grew up in Lancaster. Moved here in the early, just before 2000, so probably like 98, 99, when I was in 6th grade, and graduated from Lancaster High, went to ABC. My mom has been a part of the Edwards ecosystem for over 20 years. She now works over at NASA. And so I have a good sense of what the culture is like out here and what the mental state is for a lot of people out here. There's a lot of hurdles to get through, depending on your background or how you approach things and things like that. But getting back to the TED event, I really wanted to make this applicable for everybody, right? So it's not only, we're focusing on Edwards, but what does Edwards represent, and what are the stakeholders that are part of this ecosystem? You got Mojave Spaceport, you got JPL, you got Plant 42, our sister base, LA Air Force Base, and the list goes on, right? Being the test center of the universe, there's a lot of players out there that I think a lot of people would just really love to engage with, and we're talking about mental health and this idea of being siloed because of COVID, and I think that really impacted not only Edwards Air Force Base and people here, just that sense of isolation that is just compounded by being forced to isolate, right? But that also impacted students because, if we're going to inspire the airmen of 2030, naturally the airmen of 2030 are currently high school kids or middle school kids, right? And so, that was my target audience. And as soon as I threw this idea out to our honorary commander, Diane Walker, she was all over it. She loved it. She's a liaison at AV Unified School District. I believe she's on her way to retire come soon. But she was the one that connected me to Kern County, and half a dozen other counties out there, like all the way down to Long Beach. We had some schools that attended the event that drove all the way over from there. So that means they started at like 5 in the morning to come to the event. But yeah, the idea was to have, an in-person event that it offers a networking opportunity for everyone to engage with one another. And I was really excited when I saw General Higer and Chief Ward and Colonel Gordon going around and just talking to people, socializing, talking to these students, and that was kind of the big idea. I wish we would have had some break time in between so that people can have that genuine interaction with each other. But at the same time, everyone was so excited to participate.
Oh, yeah.
22 speakers was a heck of a lot.
Oh, yeah.
So I was really pumped that everyone was so excited to be a part of it. And, it definitely wasn't something that, I was the champion of anything and everything. It was more along the lines of, we had 130 volunteers, and, 30 of my closest champions that were a part of the planning committee, security forces, MXG, shout out to Building 1600 facility staff. It was just a huge collaborative effort, and I was just the one that was blessed enough to have the bandwidth to not only do my day job, but simultaneously be the orchestrator for the TED event. And I'm very proud of what happened, and we now have a referral point. As of 2022, people can refer to these videos and get caught up with the current status of what Edwards is and what is the test center universe, right? So hopefully we can, use that as a baseline for future events.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So Jared, I think this is, you want to flip to me and then give me a thumbs up from behind the screen. You guys hearing me all right? Yep. All right. Fantastic. So Matt Higer, I'm so glad to be back on camera with you guys. Happy to answer any questions about, hey, where you been? I was on a long vacation to Antarctica or something else. But we can talk about that as the audience wishes. But I think it's super, super cool, Jared, that my first time back on camera in, it's been almost 4 months, is with you in the studio here. And that we get a chance to do this little dialogue, because I look at 2022 thus far. Now we have one big event to go, but there's only one event left in the calendar year that we are planning to do that has a chance to be better for the community, the future, the STEM education and all that, and that's the air show, right? And that may or may not exceed the value and the benefit and, quite frankly, the excitement that I saw in Building 1600 the day that you organized and you led the team to do. So I think it's super cool that I get to come back and you're the first person that we get to chat with here at Friday's town halls. But this is a way for us to thank you as the leader. I know you're going to say that Wendy was an awesome co-host, and you're right. Wendy is fantastic, but she was a great co-host day of, and I know she had a big role to carry during the planning part. But you were on point, and you did a lot there. I personally appreciated our interactions. You'd say, "Hey, sir, here's what I've got in mind," and I'm like, "Have you considered?" Or we shaped, and we were able to mold and shape what we were going to do and why, and a couple themes there. That was super valuable and much appreciated, and I think the benefits were tremendous. And you took a couple lines from me and a couple interactions we had, and you exploded. And I know you had the same level of interaction with Chief Ward as well. So you did exceptional. You're going to continue to deflect the credit to the team. Man, I'm telling you, there's often a leader that surfaces from within a team, and sometimes the leader's appointed in front of the team, and I think you were both from everything I saw and everything I heard. I would like to see what you did become a recurring placeholder on our schedule. Right, so this was our second TEDx event. Yes. The first one happened before I was in command, so it's 3+ years old now. But I would like them to not be random. I'd like us to have them on a recurring schedule, and I think there's a good argument to be made for that. And then we can add themes and build up some excitement going to it. But you're right. You set a very high bar for your replacement as the next TEDx coordinator to have to do. I want to ask. I read your little. I have a little write up here on the superior performer cheat sheet that Chief and I get for these broadcasts, and. Tell me about your perfect score on the Air Force fitness test goal. Oh yeah. Yeah. So okay. so as I recall your bio, not always your uniform has always been the one you're wearing now, right? So no active duty military background. Is that? No. Am I remembering that right? Right. Yeah. So but Chief, I'm fired up that we have an airman that wears Jared's uniform that wants to get a perfect score on the Air Force fitness test, and that you're even that you know what it is, and B, you're like doing it. For that reason alone, I commend you. So talk to us about your goal, and how did that become one of your goals?
I mean, I've always been an athlete, since I was a kid, and I played soccer for 8 years, and in high school I was pretty much a generalist when it came to sports. I was a master at none of them, but I did everything, and I did cross country, I did track, wrestling. Tried football, but I'm too small of a human being, so I got obliterated, and I quit after 3 months because I was getting injured. So I just couldn't handle it, and you learn what your body type allows you to excel in. I mean, Michael Phelps, he wouldn't be caught dead running on a track, but he's naturally built for being a swimmer. He did it his entire life, and so in high school. I was actually a pole vaulter, and then I got into college, and I was a pole vaulter in D1 for CSUN for a while, and I also did the 400-meter run. But since then, my last event was in around 2014, and so it's been some time since I've been in that like extreme level of athleticism, and so it wasn't until I started working here, and I'm grateful that I was hired during COVID. I was really shocked that that happened. I went to the job fair in I think January, and then I was supposed to start in March, but what happened in March, 2020.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And so anyway, there was a lot of just downtime, and I want to get back up to, doing, celebrating my own body and my capabilities and being able to excel at something like that. So, being that this is my community now, and I just thought I'd take the challenge of trying to score perfect marks on the Air Force test when it comes to fitness and PT. And I'm working that direction, but it's a tough one right now, especially with all the heat. So I'm trying to navigate that.
I get it. So call out your active duty wingmen there. Call them to task and challenge them just as they'll challenge you. So what's your toughest component? What's giving you the challenge right now?
I'd say getting back into running. That's probably the hardest one. Especially out here, you can't really go casually running in the afternoon or during lunch, right?
No, you can't.
So getting my cardio back up. For me in particular, I think it's a mesomorphic body type, so I'm naturally just thin. So it's extremely hard for me to build muscle, like very, very, very hard. And so diet is probably the hardest part to, be able to do a lot of extreme things, but then be able to, keep doing those things consistently. And I'm trying my best to avoid injury as much as possible, so I'm only going up by, 1% increments every day, and, not doing anything too crazy, because the hardest part is that I have this idea of what I was capable of doing back in the day. And, I'm probably dating myself at this point, but, it's like I ran a 49-second 400-meter run, back in the day, and, I shouldn't have the thought of I can do it under a minute, and there's no possible way I could do that right now, right? So I got to be a little humble when I'm touching weights and going outside. So.
Yeah, no, Jared, I totally get it. So run has always been my bugaboo on the fitness test as well. I will tell you that there is one advantage that on the fitness test sheets, at least from a score perspective, that you get, and that magically your score gets better about every 10 years. Chief, I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
Oh wait, the score sheet
Sliding
changes.
scale,
Yeah,
right?
but it's incremental. It's either every 5 or every 10 years. So I had to take a quick tangent, and then we'll continue moving on. But I think this is a wonderful thing for you to highlight to not just the active duty airmen, both in the comm squadron and around the installation, but also to your civilian counterparts. The gray matter between your ears benefits from someone that is physically fit and physically active. And the duration and productivity of someone benefits from that. And after you decide you're done with your work life, you got a lot more life left because of it when you take time to do that. And we encourage not just uniformed airmen to do that, but also civilian airmen and our contractor partners as well to do the same thing. So I can now list you as yet another leader in that regime as well. So here's what I did at one of my squadrons. And actually it was a call out from a captain that was in my squadron. She was she was a Division I AA athlete as well, and I can't remember what her sport was, but she was on the Air Force cycling team, cycling team. And so she would throw down in the squadron and say, we are all going to do PT tests, and we're going to have bragging rights for who gets the best score. And a lot of folks would look at her and go, well, you got a big advantage. And she's like, no. We're going to use the male 18 to 25 score sheet. So all of us, and she pointed at me, as long as you're in, sir, I'm like, I'm in, right? And I was not on the current sheet that I'm on, but I wasn't on the 18 to 25 list, that's for sure. So we all did PT scores on that score sheet, and it was a bragging rights thing. And so I think there's great morale building and opportunity there too. So anyway,
yeah.
Jared, I think that's a cool goal, and I read it and I'm surprised, but when I see whose name is on the top of the list, I'm not surprised that it's from you. So I'll tell you, it's also another thing that is kind of obvious. He alluded to it, but he's a Jared's an Aerospace Valley. I don't want to necessarily call you a native, but you might as well be a native, and it's a family business here too.
Yeah.
So thank you, Mom, for being a longtime mission partner at NASA.
Oh, yeah.
And I look forward to seeing her sometime and commending her on raising such an awesome engineer and community partner and leader. You got a great future ahead of you. TEDx was a good example of that. And so if we had been on camera and we had it all set up, we're not going to rearrange the studio, but what I have right here is, and these are earned, not given. So you can go back to the headshot for me, right there. This is a commander's coin. That side is an Edwards scene. It says testing the future today, Edwards Air Force Base, California. And then on the back side, it has a 1-star flag. They're numbered, and it says, and these are the terms that I think are really important for all of you that have received one, presented by the commander, outstanding performance. And so these are earned, as I say. They're not given. They're earned, and you have earned this greatly. I'll be very happy to shake your hand and pass this on in pre-COVID style, because we're at that phase of the pandemic, and thank you for what you've done. You may get some with, more important or emblems or maybe more of a constellation on them, but you will never get one that's more heartfelt than what you receive from me here after we get off camera. So Jared, thank you for doing what you did. Thank you for being a part of this team, and most importantly, thank you for what you're going to do going forward as a member here at the Center of the Aerospace Testing Universe. And did you hear it, Chief? He actually gave us a new option there.
Which part?
The Center of the Universe for testing.
Yes, I did.
I actually like that
I
a little
did.
better,
I was like,
Jared.
that has a ring to it.
I don't know if you copyright that like TEDx did for us for the videos. I may think twice, but if not, then we may take that over. But thanks, Jared. You're a great teammate here, and I'm proud to serve with you.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, I appreciate it. Very proud. And shout out to everyone that worked with us in putting this together, including senior leadership and again everyone that was involved. Couldn't have done it without you guys, and that I sincerely mean that. So
awesome. Thanks again, Jared. All right, teammates. Sorry I joined a couple minutes late. I was getting a handoff from I'll say my predecessor. I think that's probably an appropriate thing. Colonel Nick Clements is literally on his way driving off the base right now. And he, as you know, from these town halls and other forums, was the 412 Testing Commander while I was out for a couple months. So we had a couple things to hand off, and I didn't want to delay his drive. They're trying to make it to rejoin with family here later tonight and early tomorrow morning. So my understanding, Chief, live question here. So we got through the mental health and the helping agencies. Folks, what I encourage you to do is not necessarily go to those pages or that page, but know where it exists and how to get there from multiple devices. So you can get to it at your work on your desktop. You can get to it via multiple apps, the Air Force Connect app, and also the one app to rule them all. And there's a lot of resources there. There's the website that it links to. We also had one of our mental health professionals, Captain Brown, I believe, was here.
Correct.
Folks, there is no harm, no foul, anytime reaching out to anyone in the med group for something that you think you might need help with, or you do I've got this little pain down here in my leg. You'd go see your doctor, and you should. If that is a piece of your physical machinery that happens to locate between your ears and inside your skull, no difference. It's health, right? And they're the right professionals to do that. However, Military One Source is another great option as well, and I've personally had good success with that, and I encourage you to make sure you know what options you have, because it isn't just our mental health team, but he's a great example, and I encourage everybody to do that and use that. And if you have a friend, a coworker, a family member, any wingman that may benefit from that, please reach out. So, and there's the Military One Source site. So great stuff. All right, with that, Chief, it looks like we got about 15 minutes for questions.
Yes, sir.
As I was walking over here, Miss Becca, our exec, walked and talked with me. One of you in the audience today has texted in what I think is a very, very detailed question. I commend you for the details on that. And it was about something in the curriculum at Starbase that was concerning to you. Thank you for texting in that question. Candidly, I don't have the answer here today with me, but if you are willing to reach out to the same text organization, so that 707-412-8922, and give us a way to contact you, I would like to learn a little bit more about what is the facts behind that, and then I want to learn a little bit more about your question as well. So thank you for having the courage to text that in. Folks, that's an example of nothing's off limits. If you have a question or a comment or a critique, we want it. If we don't know the answer online, we'll tell you we don't have it. If we don't know it, we'll tell you we don't know it, and then we'll work to get it to ground. And it can be simple things, it can be significant things, and we've pretty much hit those in this broadcast over the last going on 2 years too. So to you that texted in that about the STAR-based curriculum and the STAR-based instructors, thank you for texting that in, and I look forward to working with you as we resolve that topic. So thanks. So with that, I see a question up there. How does one become a guest speaker during the town hall? I'll say a guest. We don't necessarily make them speak, but we usually do a good job of pulling stuff out of them. Chief, you want to talk through how we pick our Warriors of the Week?
So typically our Warriors of the Week are members who have been recognized as award winners or some other significant accomplishment throughout the year, and we like to have those folks come on and tell their stories about how they achieved those things, and then just give us a little bit about themselves. That's one way that you can be a guest on the show.
Yeah, other reasons that we have guests on the show are like Captain Brown. Like there's a topic that we're seeing in the Chief and I are sniffing out or smelling out, or something is looking like this would be a good piece of information to reemphasize or rebroadcast to the team. So that's another reason. Another reason that we have guests on the show, as we actually started these broadcasts, we actually started the broadcast before Chief Ward-Swanigan was in the seat with a medical-focused town hall. And then a commander-focused town hall. When we were able to contain all that in 1 hour, we pushed the medical town hall as a portion of it, but we kept the medical experts on because a lot of the questions were COVID, vaccine, pandemic related. And so again, if there's something that we think is trending, we'll try to have the right expert here to either push information to you or something else. Let me use that as a quick advertisement for next Friday. So next Friday, we plan to have Lieutenant Colonel Westy, our public health emergency officer, and a fantastic medical officer, pediatrician, and flight surgeon in her background. She's an occupational medicine specialist right now, but she'll be here next Friday as one of our, if you will, guest speakers, and she'll also have a pediatrician with her. There are two big topics that I think are worthy of your questions and potentially your engagement with them. One is, in the last, I think it's 3 weeks or less, we now have the authorized shots for kids ages 6 months to 11 years, and that's a huge opening for opportunity for families that have been, chomping at the bit to have that option available to them. It also will be beneficial as we trend into the fall for those of you that have children that attend schools where that shot may or may not be required for their attendance in the school. And we've got the whole summer to get through that. So she'll be here to answer those questions, and there'll be a pediatrician here also to answer questions on that. And we now have 4 shots, 4 different types of vaccines that are authorized as a COVID vaccine. So everybody knows Pfizer was the first, followed shortly by Moderna. Johnson & Johnson was shortly after that. But as of recently, like in the last few days, we have Novavax. Mm-hmm. And what makes Novavax a unique addition to the arsenal, it was developed in a way that could potentially avoid a lot of the reasons that some of you had some very deep personal hesitation to get a shot from any of the other 3 based on the way it was developed and tested. So that'll be a good option. Right now it's only emergency use authorization. It's not FDA licensed yet, but I expect it will be FDA licensed soon, and it is an authorized vaccine to comply with a vaccine mandate. And so if that potentially opens up a door, an opportunity for you that you'd like to talk to your medical provider about, I encourage you to do that. If you'd like to ask those questions next week when we have Highlander and one of her peer doctors here, that'd be great too. Look forward to those. And the other thing that's going to happen likely between now and next Friday is that, I don't know if anybody saw it, but the public health communities around us drop their data updates every Thursday. Kern County has been in the high range for a couple weeks now, but LA County popped back to high. And I think those of you who pay attention to the news, LA County is considering returning with a mask mandate for indoor settings. Mm-hmm. And so we can talk about what measures we're going to implement at Edwards. And we should know all those answers by next Friday as well. So that's an example of how you also become a speaker here, because it's a topic we think you're going to ask questions about and go on. But I would say we don't coerce people here, and we always warn them, hey, you're about to go live. Don't give us your mother's maiden name, date of birth, and social security number either. So we try our best not to not to get them something they're like, ooh, I wish I hadn't said that to the internet. But
Sure.
other than
We
that-
get requests. Some
We
people
do,
have
yes.
something, an
Yeah.
event that's coming up, or
Right. So like there'll be a special observance month, and somebody wants to show up and talk about it, and we offer those opportunities to them as well. And candidly, I love learning from folks. I mean, these slots on Fridays are something that I look forward to, and it's great to be back, by the way. And I like learning. So,
Yes, sir.
all right, Chief, I'll let you take the first swing at that next question that's on the screen there.
what is the best part of your individual jobs? Well, so I think that I've kind of hinted or alluded to this in a couple of broadcasts in the last month or so. For me, once I got to the NCO ranks, and my job entailed more than just being about myself, but it spanned to teams and my people, my airmen, my span of control, whether that was at the flight or squadron level. And as a giver, as a helper, that is the rewarding part of things for me, because I'm able to have those interactions and those touch points dependent on my span of control. And so going from the squadron to the group and now to the wing level, that is like, it has expanded quite a bit, and it gives me more touch points. I'm able to go out and have conversations with the first term airmen, the Airman Leadership School teammates, just different forums, and looking for different opportunities to bring people in so that we can talk about what's on everybody's mind as I advocate for quality of life type of initiatives. And yeah, so I would just say, the people interactions, I'm a big social person, and so that right there is what keeps me energized to do what I do. So that's all.
Yeah. Boy, I would love. So the person that asked the question, I think it's a wonderful discussion starter, and this is typical for those of you that have heard me on the broadcast. I don't have short answers, and I'm not going to have a short answer here. But I'll try and summarize it with this thought. When I was just thinking here while I'm reading the question, thinking about how am I going to answer that question. I'll go back from my current job, so 2.5 years in my current job. My job prior to that, just prior to 2 years. My job prior to that, a year. And my job prior to that, a solid 2 years. So I go back 4 years, dating back 8 years. So actually 7 years. It was summer of 2015 when I started my first senior leader gig. And the thing that strings through all of those jobs and all of the roles that you play in all of those jobs, right? Because you could easily ask the question, what's the best part of being a chief? Well, that's very different than the best part of being a command chief to a 1-star,
Sure.
which is very different than being a senior leader sometimes. So I could answer it I'm a mission wing commander, I'm an installation commander, I'm a ROA, and I'm a community leader, right? There's great things about all of those. But as I aggregate it all together, the thing that is the best part about my job currently, and at least the previous 3, is I would be hard-pressed to come up with something that I've done with even 5 minutes of all of that time that hasn't been impactful.
Sure.
And that is, I mean, man, talk about job satisfaction, and that you are able to contribute of yourself to a lot of other people in a lot of other ways. But the fact that everything that we all are blessed with is impactful and will be impactful for many decades in the future is really, I think, the best part of my job. Now, I didn't say it was fun, right? A lot of things that we get to do are incredibly joyful, right? And unfortunately, there are a non-trivial amount of things that we do that are also very challenging and very difficult. And at the end of the day, Chief and I are human. And sometimes we need our friends and family and wingmen and chaplains and mental health folks too.
And puppies.
And our puppies, yes. And our puppies, yes. Boy, there's a long tangent there. I won't take it. But it's all impactful. And I think that's been a tremendous part and a tremendous value and tremendous thing that gets me pumped to get into the office, and more importantly, get to do the rest of the duties as well. And so the person that asked that question, hit us up again, because boy, there's a lot more on that too. But that's it. So and they're saying the question is no more questions at this time. I find that funny. So let's take a little puppy tangent then. So one of the things that I think is so cool about dogs in general, but puppies in specific, is that it doesn't really matter how long you've been away, and it absolutely has no correlation with whether they've been locked in their kennel for 20 minutes or 8 hours or whatever. They are always elated to see you. And each dog has their own unique personality quirks there, but that elation is something that if you happen to be a pet parent, but especially a dog parent, that is so cool as you're walking in your door knowing you're about to get that greeting.
It doesn't get old.
It doesn't, and it's 100% reliable. And if it's not there, take the dog to the vet because something's very wrong, right? But that is just so amazing, and that's not belittling the love and the welcome that I get from my kids and certainly from my spouse. But man, it is 100% full throttle every single time I return and get to see my soon pups. So it's pretty cool. All right, Chief. Well, let me hit a couple items that these aren't pushes, but these are. If a question rings in, Sergeant Morris, please hit it in. We're not going to drag this on unnecessarily. But folks, we had I will not name the name, but we had a senior leader here this week that visited us, and he asked, hey, what's up with Orange?
Was I not supposed to say his name?
May or may not be the same person, but he genuinely asked about Orange, and for those of you, so that made me realize that maybe not everybody else knows the history or the legacy of why Chief is wearing. I'm the one out of uniform, right? I actually have one. I just didn't grab it out of my car, Chief. But yes, I also have a KN95 orange mask, which I got from D. But I've got the right. Oh, come on, show me. I got the right pens here. One of them actually writes in orange.
That's right.
Those of us that have flight suits, we have bright orange, test orange. Orange is our banner. Orange is our brand. If you've had the pleasure or displeasure, depending what the topic was, of being in the wing front office, you'll see that we have pillars painted orange in the front office, and it's our brand. And I think people see orange and it implies hey, that must have been part of the test community, especially at Edwards, and so that's a part of our brand. But where does the orange history show up from? It shows up from the early testing where we were having to instrument airplanes and other things. And when we laid in the instrumentation, the wiring, the sensors, the recorders, all that kind of stuff, we wanted to make sure that folks maintaining it knew what was instrumentation and what was the original equipment. And that's why. And so when you think about colors that would stand out, deep in the crevices of an airplane, well, and in the cockpit, which is also an important thing. So things that are tested in the cockpit are also orange. So what are the colors? Well, white is a color that would stand out. But white can get dirty and grungy, and white is kind of used in a few places, so that one's not option. Well, yellow would stand out, right?
Sure.
Well, except that yellow and black stripes had already been designated as egress or emergency things. So like ejection handles in almost all aircraft I've ever been in are orange and black striped, just like egress handles. So you're not going to use yellow. And so they decided that orange is that color, and a bright pop. Orange is that one, and so we still use that to this day, and that's the why. It's a very practical reason. There's also a very practical reason that we don't use anymore today, but all the aircrew that were on those aircraft also used to wear the same color orange flight suits.
Right.
And that was so if the aircraft were in an emergency response scenario, especially if there was a lot of smoke in the cockpit, the responding first responders would know that that's a person, not a piece of equipment. And that was also very helpful and very beneficial. And so don't ask me. I bet James Tucker knows, but I don't know when we stopped wearing orange flight suits here. But I never saw somebody wear one, and I've never had one myself. So that's at least 25 or 30 years old. But that was something that we used to wear as aircrew here.
How would you have felt about wearing an orange flight suit?
Oh, I'm totally good with wearing an orange flight suit.
Okay.
But I don't own one, and I haven't had one. And the party suit thing, that for those of you that have been stationed in Korea, didn't make it on this side of the Pacific. So I guess
I'm glad we did away with them. It's too close to orange jumpsuits.
Yeah. So she asked how it would feel wearing orange, and I'm assuming that meant not behind bars, because I don't think I look good in orange behind bars. Something about being out and free, maybe. But yeah. Anyway, great question, Chief. So anything that you want to share or questions you got for me or something you want to pin me down on publicly, go ahead, Chief. This is your time.
So, sir, as you kind of mentioned earlier, this is your first show back after being away for some time. And so I'm just happy that you're back.
Thanks.
Just happy to have you back in the seat as my wingman and as the commander, of course. But yeah, it's good.
It's good to be back. For those of you that, so if you ask me one-on-one, I will always answer the question, what was it? And I'd be happy to answer that. I'm not going to drag out the broadcast about me, but happy to share the learning that I've had and that my family's had the last few months, actually the last few years, but certainly the last few months. I have to remind myself, and my much better half is very much there to keep me throttled back, as is the front office team. Right. One of the things that, yes, I'm back, but I don't have the capability or the capacity that I had in mid-May yet. I'm working back to that, but it's good enough that I can return from convalescent leave, and I'm proud to be here, happy to serve, and it's really good to be back and see everybody. Now, if I could just magically make those 2,000 emails go away.
You can. I can show you how to do it.
Select all, delete. Yeah, well, there might be a small. So I bet the issue there is that 2,499 would be no issue, and then there'd be the one from the president or Secretary Austin or something like that I wish I wouldn't have deleted. Oh, and those are unlikely, but maybe there's a long lost friend in there, so I end up having to sift through that.
Yes, sir.
And maybe that's just my little OCDC tendencies. Tendencies,
yep,
right, Chief?
That's
not
like
a
me.
Diagnosis, just a tendency. So anyway, yeah, it's great to be back, folks. As I mentioned, we are going to have a broadcast next Friday in our normally scheduled time slot. So it'll be every duty Friday at 1300, certainly for the duration of my command. You can find us here. And next week, we're going to have public health and a pediatrician to talk about related items there. We'll give you a quick update on where the installation is with HPCon and COVID, and a couple thoughts going forward on that. Then we look forward to your questions, comments, and critiques, and maybe suggestions as you have it as well. So it's great to be back. Everybody enjoy your weekend, be safe, and have a great time contributing to your nation at the center of the aerospace testing universe.